Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to get started shortly. Just letting you flow into the webinar now. Thanks for tuning in. Okay. Good afternoon, Royal LePagers from coast to coast, wherever you are physically distancing from. Before I turn things over to Matthew Ferrara, a few guidelines first. Today's session will be recorded as always. So if you do have any audio or video problems rather, or if you just want to see more Matthew, again, we've got you covered, of course. All recordings and registrations for upcoming webinars are available on RLP Network under the training tab. To share any comments or observations during the webinar, please use the chat feature. Specifically, you will see the chat icon at the bottom of your desktop screen or in the three-dot menu to the bottom right of your mobile device. If you have a question for Matthew, please use the Q&A function specifically. The Q&A icon is next to the chat icon. The Q&A will be the only source that we take questions from, just to avoid any confusions. Right now, ensure your chat response is set to all attendees so everyone can see your comments. You can try it. Share your Canadian pride with Matthew. Use the chat to tell him where you are from in our great big beautiful country and maybe why he should visit your region eventually, of course. So let's check that out. Let's see where people are coming from. They're coming in now. Montreal, Winnipeg, Woodstock, Wasaga, Meaford, Vancouver, St. Catharines. I'm not seeing any reason that Matthew should visit you, so to speak. But of course, Matthew, you already know that there's lots of great reasons. And Royal LePagers are among the most gracious people. So lots of beautiful spots for you to visit if you ever want to leave that 90-degree weather of yours. But it won't be the first time we've had the honor of hosting you, of course. You're an old friend of Royal LePage and have been a keynote speaker at many of our broker and agent events over the years. It's my pleasure to introduce you today direct from Las Vegas, which has to feel like the most surreal place on earth right now. Matthew, you are a philosopher, a speaker, a photographer, a writer, and an entrepreneur among your many talents. Today you lead a leadership development firm, but over your 30-plus year career, Matthew has built and developed many businesses, including an international training firm and a telecom company. Matthew has delivered management consulting to global sales organizations and helped pioneer early efforts in online marketing and online learning, which is really suitable for today. So speaking and making a difference with his words is Matthew's passion. We couldn't be more delighted or grateful to have Matthew speaking his words with us here today. So without further ado, let's turn things over to the man himself. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you very much for that gracious welcome. I appreciate it. It's good to be back. It's good to be back with a lot of names I recognize in our attendance here, and hopefully to make some new friends as well. Always a pleasure to be with you. It's such a fine organization, and frankly, I would love to visit all of the places that I've seen in the chat room. A few I've been to, and a few I'm just going to have to add to my list, and maybe bring my camera and catch up with some friends we'll be making today, and we'll take some photographs and share some good words with each other as well. Thank you all for spending some time with me today. I know that there's probably a lot of demands on your time and attention, and we really appreciate a chance to have an hour to work on ourselves a little bit. As we grow ourselves, we'll be able to continue to make the right contributions to our families and our communities, our industry, and our peers. So today I'm just thrilled to have 200 plus people on the session, and I do encourage you to add comments and ask questions as we go so that we can maximize our time together. Today's session is called a U-shaped recovery, and The U is a little bit of a play on words here. It's a YOU shaped recovery. I'm not really interested in the economics of it so much, but in what you can do to spark a recovery for yourself, for your peers, for the industry, and for our roles, the little bits that we do play in our local economies and global economies. And so I want to share with you some ideas that I think will help you maintain some momentum, as well as perhaps explore possibilities that can still be found even in difficult times and uncertain periods in our lives. So we're going to do a lot of things using your participation. So please be ready to use the chat room to offer ideas and suggestions and questions in the Q&A. Just to start, I always like to put our minds in the right place, and I would love to do an activity with everyone just to get rolling that I learned a long time ago, and it's an activity that was taught to me as a Rotarian. I'm a Rotarian, and what I love about this particular activity is I can do it myself every morning. I can do it with others, and if you're talking to clients or you're talking in sessions with the rest of your peers in your office, you could do this as well. It's a good way to get our minds in a growth space and a positive space. So what I'd love for you to do is think for a moment about one good thing. One good thing. This is what we do as members of Rotary. When we get together for our meetings, we start by celebrating one good thing that has happened to us in the last week. And it doesn't have to be huge. It could just be a small thing that's happened to us. It could be that I got 8 hours of sleep last night, or I have got in some more walking than ever before, or I had a great conversation with a past client or a peer or whatever it was. Put something in the chat room right now to celebrate your one good thing that's happened in the last couple of days or even week. And it's important that we recall one good thing from time to time, as frequently as we can, but it's specifically important during difficult times to recall one good thing, to remind ourselves that not everything is falling apart, and that even amongst tough times, plenty of good can be found. Jane says it's sunny. Mark says he's had more time with his family. Some people have built offices, home offices. They've had time to cook. All the tenants paid their rent, opened my pool. Right? We could see so many of these in the chat room. And I want you to think about doing this with every day, doing this with every conversation that you start, even if it's just for yourself. Pause and take a moment to remind yourself. And as you do it and share it with others, and you see all the little one good things that are happening to them, it starts us down the path of our mindset of developing what we call a U-shaped recovery. So bravo to all of those things that are flowing through the chat room right now. I can't read them all, but I'm just enthused by the ones that I'm seeing here. And let's together take that attitude and take a look at what it means to develop a U-shaped recovery. Now, I want to start with a photograph I took a few years ago in Rome. It's a bit of an intimidating, scary-looking photograph, and I want to start with an opening to a book that's meant a lot to me over the years, and many of you may have read it when you were in high school or college as well. It's the opening to Charles Dickens's Tale of Two Cities, in which he starts by saying, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." And what I like to think about is, it is those things, and it's like that every day. It's always a little bit of combination of the best of times and the worst of times. There's always opportunity and difficulty and opportunity. And when this pandemic started to unfold and we all had an initial shock and pause and fear and concern, we might have felt as if it was the worst of times and we had gone from the best of times. And it feels sometimes like that. We're standing under this statue pointing danger down at us, and we might even freeze in a moment like that. And what we want to do is we want to remind ourselves of moments like this. We want to remind ourselves of the fact that even amongst the best of times, there have been difficulties we faced, and even amongst the difficult times, there have been good things that we have experienced. And what we need to do at this point in time is we need to look up at the danger that might be facing us, look up at the difficulty that we're facing, and not freeze, not get stuck underneath it. Step back, step to the side, go around if possible, and ask ourselves, what can we do? And you'll see this this comment, this little quote in the bottom left-hand corner here that I like to think about during difficult challenges, and it's by Mike Tyson, the former boxer, who used to say, "Listen, everybody had a plan until they got punched in the face." Well, the most important thing to remember, my friends, is that there wasn't a knockout punch. You haven't been knocked out entirely. You get a little bit of a punch in the face. Well, what happens when you get in the ring and you get a punch in the face? You back up, you shake it off, you shake your head, and you say, I need to have a different strategy. I need a different way to get through this bout because I'm going to go all 10 rounds and I am going to win at the end of it. And so when I think about the period we've started in some weeks ago and we're passing through now, even as I start to see great shoots of positivity emerging from this, we still might feel as if we're stuck between the best of times and the worst of times. And what we can do now is we can regroup our thoughts, regroup our strategy, and come up with some new ways to act in a positive and a productive way. And that's some of what I'm going to share with you today. And I encourage you to have a piece of paper handy because we're going to do a little writing together and we're going to draw a design. We're going to draw a model that will help us grow forth, not just go forth through these times together. So, okay, good start, good kickoff here. Great comments. I love the comments that are in the chat room. Please keep them coming. I want to talk to you about a journey that we're all going on together, but that we all also have to be shepherds for our families and our clients and each other. And that is this sort of road from a sense of unlimited uncertainty back to a sense of calculated risk. What's it going to take for us to move from a sense of I'm not sure what's happening and what I'm going to do to I think I could take some calculated risks? Here's the first thing I want you to remember. You have trained for this your whole life. First of all, regardless of the industry, regardless of our professions right now, we've all been through difficult times. And we're all on this call today, and we've got through them all together. So we understand what it's necessary to change our approach, change our thinking, try something new. But when it gets huge like this, when there's a massive amount of uncertainty, we sometimes can feel as if we're just not even sure how to take a calculated risk anymore. But let me remind you that you are in the business of calculated risk. I mean, that is what real estate is all about. You calculated in your mind that it was better to become an entrepreneur than it was not to do it, that it's better to take the courses and invest in yourself than it is not to, that the benefits of calling some people and winning them as clients and friends outweighs the risks of maybe having them hang up on us or a moment of discomfort when we make our early prospecting calls. The bottom line is we're in the risk business, we're in the calculated risk business, and we're really good at it. In fact, we're so good at it that most of us don't even realize that we have never had a deal that's gone by the book. We've never had a deal that went perfectly the way we heard about it in training class, that we learned about it in our lessons, that we have thought our checklists would be able to drive us through. And I want you to remind yourself that for every deal that's never gone by the book, which is all of them, you have figured it out. You've got people back on the same page. You've got around problems in productive ways. You've solved things. You've helped people get over the hurdles. So quite honestly, what's happening to us right now is exactly what you have trained for. It might feel a little bigger. It might feel a little bit more scary, but honestly, it's actually not if you go back to the core of what you're trying to do, which is to always move people from a sense of uncertainty to a sense of acceptable risk. That's what it's like when we help them make change in their lives, and that change is accompanied by their buying and selling of real estate, because that's what real estate is. People buy and sell when their lives are changing. And what's a greater sense of uncertainty than when our lives are changing? But what's important for us to recognize is that what we're being really challenged on right now is not our talent. Like, no one has actually said, well, you can't do this. it's a little bit of a sense of our limits. And what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to this quote in the bottom left-hand corner. This quote has meant a lot to me over my life and my professional career. And it's by someone who's, I just love his books. His name is Dr. Price Pritchett. And one of the books you might enjoy right now is actually a book called Business Unusual by Dr. Price Pritchett. And one of his sayings, actually from a different book, but he repeats it frequently, is he reminds us to doubt our limits, not our talents. Don't doubt that you're not able to walk this road. Don't doubt yourself that you're not prepared and capable of getting through this. But doubt the limits that you feel might be surrounding you. Doubt the limits that you feel might be inhibiting you. And more importantly, help others doubt those limits as well. Clients who aren't sure whether they should keep going, buyers who aren't sure whether they should take action, family members who aren't sure whether they are capable of doing their part in this as well. It is time for us to recognize that what's happening is what we've been prepared for. And so if that's the case, how will we actually take action? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ask you to start thinking about a journey sort of like a GPS. I want you to imagine that you wanted to travel this road and you had a destination in mind. What would you have done? You would have started by programming the destination in your GPS. It's like that little place marker that I just added to the photograph on the right-hand side. Okay, we have somewhere to go. We still want to go there. And when you program your GPS, what happens? Well, then it says, well, where are you now? And that's where you begin to appear on the map. So here you are. You're the little arrow on the map. And we've just got to get from here to there. And the position we find ourselves in right now, the place we are, is that there's some obstacles in the road. A tree has fallen across it. A water has flooded it out. It's closed for construction, whatever that happens to be. But we still have to say to ourselves, do we value that destination? If so, what would our GPS do? What would your car navigation do if you still wanted to get, but something was in the way? It would simply find a detour. It would find an alternate path. And you might have to go through a part of town you hadn't been before. You might have to travel roads you've not familiar with before. You might have to drive faster or slower than you've ever done before, or even trade your car in entirely to cross a new destination. All of those things you're quite capable of if you're just trying to drive across town. But now we're driving into headwinds, or even as Catherine has pointed out in the chat room, we might even be traveling into oncoming difficulty, oncoming traffic, a storm cloud on the horizon, some swirling winds. We don't know what, but we're still capable of getting there. And here's how we're going to do it. I'd love for you to take out a piece of paper now, and I'd like for you to start thinking of yourself as this navigation, as this starting arrow. And what really I want you to do is not just draw an arrow on the paper. What I want you to do is I want you to draw a triangle instead. It's a little easier to visualize it this way, but it's the same metaphor. You're the arrow on the map, and now I want to draw the model that will help us get to our destination personally and our destination professionally. So draw a great big triangle in the middle of your page. And this is the model of what I call a U-shaped recovery, a recovery that will be able to take action and create growth regardless of the economy, regardless of the bureaucracy, regardless of anything else out there, because this model you program and you can start it up anytime you want. Now, in the middle of your triangle, I want you to write the word you, of course, because it reminds you of two things. One, you're driving the triangle. You are. You don't have to fix the economy to get going. You don't have to be a scientist and fix the science or the health or the politics or the international confusion. All you have to do is work on you. Take responsibility for what you will do right now, because here's what's going to happen. Someone's going to make a sale today. Someone's going to help a client today. Someone's going to make a referral today. Someone's going to open a business today. Whenever there's difficulty, someone acts. In the Great Recession of the 1890s, which none of us remember, but I just happen to be a history buff, we saw some of the biggest tycoons of business emerged from there. Milton Hershey started the Hershey Empire at that time. General Electric was founded at that time, moving all of our societies from candles and oil lanterns to an electric-based society. We've had downturns before. In the 1990s, there was a downturn. We had September 11th. We had a global financial disaster. In the 1970s, there are maybe even some of you who remember when interest rates were so sky high that people said, you can't sell a home, but somebody did. The bottom line is this, my friends. During all forms of difficulty, someone will start their car, set their destination, and begin their own recovery. So this triangle needs to have you in the middle of it. So write the word YOU. And beneath it, write the most important thing that we do when we set our GPS, which is to validate our destination. What is it that you were setting out to do just 3 months ago at the beginning of the year? Before all of this started, what was your plan? What were you after? Did you have a goal for yourself this year? A financial goal, a personal goal, a semi-professional goal, somewhere you wanted to visit, a certain amount of money you wanted to make, a certain type of client you wanted to help, something for your personal or family life? Just write one or two of those dreams down in the triangle. Because if you don't realize you're still in charge, you can still drive, and you're still going to a destination that matters, then you will be stuck. But as soon as you validate your destination, you start to say to yourself, that still matters to me. I'm not going to be frozen anymore. I'm going to thaw. I'm going to start the engine anew, and I'm going to go down a new route to get there. So in the triangle, you write you, and then you add to it your dreams or destinations. And these don't have to be publicly declared. These are for yourself. But I have often found that when I share them with someone, if I share them with my manager, if I share them with a peer that I trust, I have a mentor that I share them with, then it helps me get clarity, and it reaffirms when I say, I'm still going to get that done. I might have to start later in the year. I might have to do things differently in the summer than I plan to, or in the fall than I plan to, but they still matter enough to set a destination. Then we've got to put the 3 parts of the triangle in place that will get us there. The first part is a word across the bottom I want you to write. This is the engine. You're going to fuel up your vehicle, and it is going to provide the rocket energy for you to move forward. And that, of course, is your mindset. And I want you to just write the word mindset across the bottom of the triangle, inside or outside, whichever you prefer, because in a moment, I'm going to share with you 3 things you can do to continue fueling and refueling and energizing your drive to go forward in that area. Then along one of the lines of the triangle, one of the lines, I want you to write the word skill set, or you might prefer to write the word talent, whatever you prefer. But this is your skill, your talent that is going to help you navigate interesting times and try new things and get great at existing talents. And we'll talk more about your skill set in just a moment as well. And of course, what holds the triangle together is the third arm, and the third most important arm, well, you can call it your sphere of influence, but I'm just a simple guy. I just call it your peeps. Who are your peeps? Who are the peeps you're working for? And who are the peeps you're working with? Who are your peers, your mentors, your managers, your fellow business professionals? And who matters to you? Your clients, your friends, your family. Because in our business, all of our clients are friends anyways. I mean, let's be honest about it. We turn our clients into friends in this business, which is one of the amazing rewards of being in the industry we're in. It doesn't happen in all industries, but for us, we invite them to our houses and our barbecues and our weddings and our retirements and all the fun things. And they're people that we, well, ostensibly did business with, but truthfully, they're just family, if you will, in a lot of ways. They refer us and they say good things about us and they work with us over and over again. So this is how the triangle, which was on our GPS, is constructed. It has tools, our skills. It has sphere of influence, the people riding along with us, and it has momentum, our mindset, which gets us there. And where are we going? Well, wherever we program the destination to take us. And that's why it's a U-shaped recovery. You are going to drive wherever you want to go. Now, let me break down each one of these arms and show you how you can enhance them, strengthen them, so that they will withstand anything that happens in the future. Because I'm really not worried about what the future looks like. All I'm worried about is that I will become capable of handling whatever the future brings. I work more on myself than on my job. because I want to be prepared for something that I just can't predict. And actually, nobody can predict, but I can prepare myself for whatever comes. Let's start with mindset to begin with. Let's start with mindset. So, on that side of the triangle across the bottom where you wrote the word mindset, we're going to put 3 things out there. These are 3 things we need to do to make sure our engine is fueled up, running well, and able to power us. And I know that a lot of you are probably doing a lot of mindset work as it is, but we have to be very, very careful. If the engine breaks down in our car, it's not as easy as changing a tire or even putting more gas in. If the engine breaks down, it's really, really hard for us to get to where we want to go. So the first thing we want to do in mindset, right, the engine of our progress, is we want to realize that some of it runs all by itself. When you turn the key in your car, your engine's doing stuff and you really don't know what it's doing. It's automatic in a lot of ways, and so is your mind. There's part of your mind that's automatically running all the time. I mean, it runs your body, but it's also automatically looking for danger. It's looking out, from millions of years of evolution. It's saying lions and tigers and fire and lightning and danger. It's always looking for danger. And when things actually get dangerous, when there is actually a great challenge out there, it's in superactive mode. It is overreacting in some cases, but at the same time, it's also being provoked. And we need to be careful because there are things going on out there that we do need to have information and we do need to learn about, but we also have to realize that there are things going on out there that are just poking our brain, that are just literally causing that part of our mind to see danger when it might need to see opportunity. And that's the supercomputer part of the brain, the reasonable, rational side of the brain that allows us to find opportunity in tough times. So how do we balance the engine? How do we, like they say in mechanic school, finely tune the engine? Well, here's the first thing. Control the bumps. Don't put bad fuel into the engine. What's bad fuel? Well, to be honest, there's a bunch of bad fuel that we're tuned into all day long. I mean, sure, wake up in the morning and get a little bit of news. Get the information you need to stay up to date. But then you know what? Turn it off. Close the feeds. Shut off the apps. Turn off the tabs. Tune out on the subscriptions. Because if you're not careful, you're pouring bad fuel into the engine. I mean, think about it. How can you get up and read an hour of the news today with all the provocative, dangerous negativity that's in it and then somehow have a good day? It's just not possible. So we have to take responsibility to have information and then to close it off for a while. First of all, if anything happens, you're going to know. People will reach out to you. You will know if anything really important happens. But in the meantime, most of the headlines that you and I are reading, they're not even real. They include words like might or maybe or could or not sure or possibility. They say things like, cases down, but could spike to dramatic highs. Well, anything could happen. A meteor could hit the planet, or they could fall even further. But remember how the news is designed. If they don't get you stressed out, you won't click the link. You won't get curious because your mind won't be provoked. So I want you to be careful. You must separate speculation from situation. And that is how you control the fuel. Otherwise, you're going to have an engine that's running on negative fuel. But it's not enough, my friends, just to calm down the provocation. Because if you stop filling the engine, filling the fuel with negativity, there's going to be a vacuum. And you've heard the phrase, nature hates a vacuum. So we have to be careful that it doesn't seek out even more negativity. And we do that by adding positive fuel, adding something good to our mind every single day. So what is it that you do when you wake up every morning to add positive fuel? I'll tell you what I do. I get up every single morning, I read 15 minutes of the news, and then I turn it off. When I get dressed, have a nice breakfast, I put on a collared shirt, I have a sport coat over there if I should need it. I come into my office, I sit at my desk, and my Alexa turns on the lights and turns on the air conditioning, and then I tell her to play my morning music mix. And what's my morning music mix? A bunch of powerful songs that get me going. I like to listen to classical style music, and I love superhero movie themes. So I have a whole playlist in the morning that is essentially like Superman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Avengers, Star Wars, Harry Potter, powerful songs that get me going. Then followed by powerful words while I'm checking my email. Jim Rohn, Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, all these things are positively fueling up my brain so that by the time I'm ready to work and make my contribution to my peers and my friends and my family and my clients, my fuel is rocket fuel in the right place. So what are you doing to add good fuel? Like Rosanna says, hey, I have a very strict routine, maybe even more stricter than ever before now. It's important because you could overwhelm yourself with this. But what positivity do you add? Do you read a poem? Do you read a prayer? Do you read an old story that you like? I found myself going onto my library here and reading some old quotes. Do I like to read a little short story? Do I go to goodnews.org, which is a cool website of only positive stuff? What are you doing to add positivity in? Because you can't just remove the negativity. You've got to replace the space with something valuable. So I'd love for you to drop something or two in the chat room right now. We could share a couple of things with each other in terms of what are we doing to add the good? Remove or limit the negative and then add the good. Trust me, if the engine's not running, we can put anything in the GPS, but we won't have the energy to get there. We will psych ourselves out. So we have to be careful. Some people look for positive quotes and share it on Facebook. So it helps them and then they help others, right? Positive information about the market that I can share with others, or here's some great songs coming in there. Elton John, Rocket Man, Queen, Don't Stop Me Now, some exercise, some meditation, some yoga. Great. These are all the kinds of things that, by the way, we always said we were going to do anyways, right? When times were good and we were busy and everything was positive, we said, oh, I wish I did more of that. Not only can we use these activities now when we need them extra, maybe we can build lifelong habits out of them so our engine is always running good in the future as well. Love these things that are in the chat room. Feel free to keep them coming. Now, that's only 2 of the 3 things we need to do to keep our engine balanced. Here's the last thing I want you to add across the bottom of your page. Set the intention. Set the intention. So we put in a little bit of information. We fuel up on positive energy and inspiration. You see where I'm going here? And now we've got to grab hold of the wheel and start pointing ourselves where we want to go for the day. So here's where we have to talk about our intentions for the day. And I only go day by day because a week is made out of days and a month is made out of weeks, which are made out of days. So all I have to manage is the day. Now, you could do an hour if you want, but let's keep it simple on ourselves. Every morning, I then have to set the direction I'm going in as I make progress. So how do we set the waypoints along our map, right? The little waypoints along the map. I'm very simple. I'm a real easygoing guy here. I believe that either I'm programming my day or someone else is programming my day, right? I'm programming my day or someone else is programming my day. So what are we going to do with this? Well, I use this phrase. At the beginning of every morning, I just do a little writing. Now, I keep a journal. You don't have to keep a journal. It doesn't have to be that complicated. You could just grab a sheet of paper and across the top of it, while you're listening to your great music or your prayers or whatever those things are, you could set your waypoint for the day. You could say, today is going to be the kind of day when, and you just finish that sentence, my friends. The kind when. And it doesn't have to be complicated. A few more words. The kind of day when I clear out my inbox. Okay, that's a good day. A kind of day when I make plenty of time for good conversations. Okay. A kind of day when I put an extra half a mile on my Fitbit tracker than yesterday. A kind of day when I call someone and tell them how grateful I am for them in their lives. It doesn't have to be any bigger than that. These are the waypoints on our journey. A kind of day when I resist the temptation to read the negative news. A kind of day when I call someone in my office that I know and I make their day in some way. That's all you have to do. But if you could set out your intention for the day, you are revving that engine. You're at the starting line, my friends, and it's revving. You've got the information, the energy, and now the intention. Now, if you're really working on this, you could do it even a little more personally. You could talk about the kind of person you're becoming. I'm becoming the kind of person who. And when you do it this way, you're actually saying, what is this crisis teaching me? What am I becoming as a part of this crisis? I'm becoming the kind of person who, and then you're really opening up the power to set your navigation. Now, that might be too big for where you are right now. That's okay. But I would love for you to write this little starter phrase, the kind of day when. And if you could practice that every single morning, you've got the 3 pieces of a well-running, purring engine, an engine that's ready to take you wherever you go as soon as you put your foot on the gas. Let me pause for a moment and see if there are any questions with respect to mindset, with respect to how you energize your mind. A good time to talk about it is right now before we go to the other 2 pieces. Please feel free to go to the Q&A and add any questions in there. I see them as you do them so that I'm able to quickly respond to them. And it's easier if you do it in the Q&A. You can click the Q&A at the bottom, and then just if you have any about or questions about mindset, how you can nurture it, strengthen it, and then of course take advantage of it, now is a good place for that. And don't worry, you can ask them at any time. I'm just going to make sure we pause a moment to see that if you do have a mindset question, we can work on it right there. Here's a good question. What was that quote? Separate speculation from. Good. I'm glad you picked that up. It's one of my favorite things to say. I like to separate speculation from situation. Speculation from situation. So the situation is, here's where I am today. I'm at home. The power's on. I'm well fed. I'm talking to 220 of my favorite people on a webinar. We're learning together and things are okay. There's a lot of going on around me and I have to be careful and I have to be prudent, but that's the situation. You know what the speculation is? Everything that's on my phone right now. All those headlines that say warning, disaster, possibly, could have, maybe, whatever. That's speculation. Always try to separate that because the brain loves speculation. It actually pays 10 times as much information to speculation because it could end up being a danger. And that's what it's designed to do, than the information. So we just got to be very, very careful around that. Love that. And there's a note in the chat that says the biggest barrier is myself. Oh, what a wonderful, yeah, that's a wonderful Stoic. I believe that might have come from the Stoics, right? We are often the biggest barrier to our growth ourselves. So wherever that has come from, I love the sentiment around that. But I would just like to also add that the biggest motivator is also myself too. I can fuel a U-shaped recovery. I don't have to wait for the economy to come back. I don't have to wait for someone to say go. I am also my biggest supporter. So I think it works both ways. But Mike, I'm totally love that quote, and I'm glad that was out there. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so we've energized our mindset across the bottom. Now we're revving. Where are we going? Where we're going is here. I would like to talk about growth during turbulent times, during difficult times. What we're going to need to navigate a new road and get to a destination that still matters to us are going to come from our skills and our talents. And my friends, this is the time to sharpen the saw. As I've been saying for about a month now, this is not time off. This is not time off. This is game on, my friends. And please don't get 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months from now and look back and say, gosh, if I'd only used that time to take that course or work on this or do that. Let's not let that happen to ourselves. We're going to drive some skill set improvements because our engine's revving and we're going to need to drive it properly. So let's talk about skill set. Now, before I go into that, there is a question related to mindset. What would I do if someone is doubting their why, right? So it's a very powerful question. And here's what I do. If I'm in the middle of my triangle and I look at my destination, I look at my dreams and I'm not sure they're clear anymore, then this is a good opportunity to step back for a moment and explore that why. Explore why I am doing what I'm doing, heading in the direction I thought I was heading in, etc. And this is where that second phrase I gave you might really be helpful. The one that said, I'm becoming the kind of person who. Give yourself permission to just write around that for 5 minutes a day for a few days or a few weeks if you need to as well. so that you can explore where you thought you were going and who you intended to grow towards, grow into, if you will. So it's okay actually to doubt that you had the right destination. Maybe sometimes, we ask ourselves, I thought I was going to do that, and I'm not quite sure. I'm not even sure why I was motivated to do that, and I want to examine that. That is a well-examined life is wonderful. So don't be upset that this might be happening in your mind right now. Take the advantage of it and ask yourself the following question: could it be that the crisis has occurred for you at the right place at the right time in your life? That this moment of coming up short has caused you to say, I really have to examine my why I'm doing this, why I like this work, or maybe why I'm hoping to continue in this line of work, why I thought my goals mattered before, and re-examine them. Because if you strengthen them, or even if you adjust, what happens is you start to learn that our careers aren't really about what we get paid. Our careers are about what they make of us. Right? I don't do this work for what I get paid. I do this work for what it makes of me, of who it helps me become. And that's the same thing is true for our clients too. Who we help they become through our work is as important as how much we get paid, right? So good question there. Thank you for asking that. All right, along that second arm now, along the second part of our triangle is sharpening the saw. So let's talk about sharpening the saw. One of my favorite, of course, parts of growth is getting better. For things to change, I'm going to have to change. So what do I need to work on? So I want you to write this word down: discipline. I'm going to give you 3 disciplines that you work on right now, and you don't have to do them all every day, and you don't do them for 8 hours a day. But I would love for you to dedicate a half an hour a day on one of these disciplines every day of the week. Use this time. If last December I had said to you, I'm going to give you a month off of sitting in traffic, running paper around town, going to meetings where someone fails to show up, right? You would have said, oh, that would be fabulous. Well, we don't love this time off, the reason we have this time off, but we could still say, what am I going to do with it? How will I invest it properly? The first discipline I want you to think about is write down something you're really good at, and how do you plan to make it great? How do you plan to take a talent that you're good at? You're good at networking, you're good at negotiating, you're good at prospecting, you're good at marketing. I don't know what it is. Whatever you're good at, how will you use a half an hour every day or 3 times a week for the next couple of weeks and turn it into an epic level of performance? Why? So that no matter what the world presents us over the next week, month, year, 10 years, you will have taken something you were good at and driven it to superhero level of performance. You'll be ready for anything. You won't worry about disruption. You won't worry about confusion, because you will have taken something you already have a natural talent on, and you are going to learn a little more, do it 10% more frequently, get some help from a mentor, read the next book in the series, takes the next course in the series. Maybe you did the 101, you'll do the 201, maybe you'll do the 301. This is the time, my friends, to take something you're good at and become incomparable at it. So that when you get more bandwidth, when you start picking up momentum, when the market gets easier, when barriers start to fall, you will be so that you'll find yourself performing at a level that was even better than when things were normal just a little time ago. You don't want to go back to normal. Don't go back to the performance that you were at in January or December or whatever that was. Be ready to go super normal. So take something good and move it to great. What is it that you're going to study? What is it that you're going to read? What is it that you're going to take a class online? Who will you turn to for some coaching, for some mentoring? That's the first discipline. The second discipline is to take something that's kind of barely good and at least make it better. Look, we all have them in our lives. Don't be down about it, and don't get down on yourself either. Don't make this hard. This is not about criticizing yourself, but it's realizing, you know what? I was kind of only barely good at that. I was barely getting enough sleep. I was barely paying attention to my diet. I was barely keeping up with my clients. I was barely organizing my database. I was sort of barely watching the market stats. Okay, I'm going to at least make it better. I'm going to spend 30 minutes twice a week making it a little better. 3 times a week taking I'm good at and making it awesome. 2 times a week taking something that's barely acceptable and at least get better. And this is the time to shore up those little weaknesses that we have, to strengthen them, but not worry if they're not going to become the best, but at least take the opportunity to strengthen them as we go. So that at the end of the period where we feel a little inhibited, we will not only be awesome at something, but we will be better at something as well. That's the second discipline. Now, I think you probably guessed on what the third discipline is, and that is this. What was something you were going to do new this year? Because you need to move it to now. What were you going to do over the summer again? Were you going to take that course? Were you going to learn a new price point? Were you going to work with a new type of client? Were you going to study international markets? Were you going to learn social media or do a video or whatever those things were? My friends, add one new thing, but move it to now. Not the fall, not later, not what if, or if you have time, or kind of maybe, now. So now you have to say to yourself, what do I need to add to the mix that I can learn from, but also will prepare me for maybe what's coming? What are the kinds of things I need to add that I didn't know before, and that either the market is likely to require of me or might create a growth opportunity that I had been putting off for years? To do better social media, to do more video than writing, or more writing than video, whatever those things are, it doesn't matter. It's your new thing, but you need to move it to now. So during the period that you're starting down a new road, during the period where you're starting down a new journey to the same destination, you want to rely on the things you're good at and make them better. You want to take the things you kind of need fixing and get them fixed. And you want to say to yourself, what will I wish I had studied, and be grateful to myself for studying and adding new 6 weeks from now or 6 months from now? I don't know what the time is. I simply know that there's something new I need to do. Let me give you an example. Here are seven things that I just came up with off the top of my head a couple of weeks ago. You could take a photo of this with your smartphone right now. Just point it at the screen. I'll smile. And take a picture of it. Because here's the thing. These are just seven I came up with. I'm sure you could come up with other things. But what are the things that might be something you're good at, you're going to become epic at, something you're not so good at, you're going to clean up, and something new you can add in? Is it a price point, a customer type, investor, foreign investor, new market area? Maybe those things are possible to us now. Maybe now that we can do listing presentations using Zooms, and we can do them not because we know how to use Zooms, but because the public knows how to use a Zoom now. I mean, how much of the public was using Zoom 2 months ago? None of them. I mean, business people used it. Now everybody uses it. Does that allow you to work in a new market area, reach new real estate professionals further away, and get some FaceTime with them and build relationships so that you could drive referrals? I don't know, but it's possible. It's possible if you add that new. I could learn how to deliver online presentations. That might be new. Or maybe I just need to improve my presentations overall by practicing with someone during this time because they were good, but I'm going to make them amazing during this time. We're going to practice with questions and answers with each other. I don't know. Maybe my database has been a mess forever, and I'm going to go from barely adequate to decent to better than before. Maybe I'm going to write fresh content. Maybe I'm going to update all my listings. Maybe I'm going to rewrite my bio online. Maybe I'm going to take a new approach to social media or try video for the first time. I don't know what those things are, and I don't know if they're new. I don't know if they were barely getting by, or I don't know if you're already good at them and you're going to become awesome at them. But I know that you can come up with 5, 6, 7 things that over the next 5, 6, 7 weeks, that if you worked 30 minutes a day on one of them, just one of them, whatever stage they're at the end of this period, you will be better than you were before. I don't need to work and fix everything else. I'm just going to work on me. Things to get better, Jim Rohn used to say. For things to get better, I have to get better. And so here are some things I came up with. Maybe you've got some things too. Maybe you want to throw something in the chat room to suggest to your fellows who are also listening here, your peers who are listening and watching here, that they might at least have on their area of study, another area in which they could either get excellent, get better, or get new at. But I know that you could talk amongst this yourselves at your next office meeting about these things as well, right? Better at systems, better at MLS, better at forms, better at internet marketing, better at websites. Okay, you get the idea. Good stuff, right? So what I want you to think about is I want you to think about this is the period to sharpen the saw. And it is not time off. It is game on for the serious professional. And that's you, of course. All right, what's the third part of our triangle? What holds this whole thing together, my friends, is my sphere of influence. My sphere of influence, my peeps, my people who love me, people who know me, my people who are willing to do anything for me. They're my friends, they're my family, they're my neighbors, they're my clients, they're my fellow real estate professionals, both in my company and in my board, right? Who is the member of my sphere of influence that needs me and I can rely on them at the same time? So let's talk about what we need to do with our sphere of influence. 3 things that you'll write on this side of the triangle. The first thing you're going to do is be a positive presence. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. But let me just give you the opening bit on being a positive presence. Right now, people need to know that things are going to be okay. And that comes from you being just present in their lives. I mean, maybe it comes from giving them some information about the market, and maybe it comes from helping them stay on top of trends and news. But some of it just comes from being there and saying, are you okay? And is there anything I can do? And I'm still here. And even though I checked in on you 2 weeks ago, I'm doing it again, because being present is my job in people's lives. I mean, you don't just check in with your family once a week, and they're just floating around the house in the meantime. You check in with them every hour. Well, what about your clients? How are you being present? And I want you to write this word very carefully, a positive presence, my friend. And I just want to say this. I am watching some people through their newsletters, through the phone calls they're making to me, through the texts I'm getting throughout the day, through their social media posts, absolutely creating wonderful, positive experiences. Their reputations are soaring. They are burnishing their reputations amongst their peers and amongst their spheres. But I am also watching people blow themselves up as well. I'm also watching people diving into the comments section and posting things that are divisive and venting online. Now, look, we all need to have a moment to vent, but that's what my mother used to call my inner voice. And so I want you to be really careful when you're with your sphere. Now, I actually have people in my sphere that I can have a moment of difficulty with. I pick up the phone and I call my best friend and I say, listen, I don't need you to fix it, but could you just hear me? And then I let it all out. So that when I am around the people who need me to be on the other end of that spectrum, the positive end of that spectrum, I can be that person. But I want you to be really, really careful. Don't be on automatic. Don't be sending out those automatic templates and those generic messages and stats and charts only. That's not enough. Be a presence where people go, whew, thank you. That was time well spent. That was just a moment that I needed. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. But being a positive presence means checking in and then coming in for round 2 and round 3 and round 5 and whatever it takes for people to know. And I just want you to know one thing, because you're doing it too. Let's be honest. Everyone is making a list, and like Santa Claus, they're checking it twice. Everyone is keeping track of who is someone good in their lives right now that they're happy to be connected to. And they're also making a list of the people. Well, actually, they're not making a list. They're removing them from their list. How many of you have unfollowed someone on social media recently? How many of you have pressed mute or disconnect or whatever that thing is? How many of you have canceled subscriptions to things? I canceled subscriptions to some media sources because I was just done with that relationship. That was not good. And I was actually paying for that. Well, to be honest, your sphere of influence pays you too. So you have to be payworthy in between the good times, the bad times, the transaction times, and the not transaction times. So be positive amongst your peeps. Secondly, be a connector. Look at your sphere of influence. Go through your database. Go through your friends list on Facebook and say, who needs to know each other? If you're having a phone call with a past client and they're worried about finances, say, you know what? I want to connect you with my finance gal. She is the smartest person I know about finance. Let me make an introduction. You don't have to do anything. You have to buy anything from her. You don't have to refinance your mortgage. Just talk to her. I want you just to talk to her, right? Or maybe someone else is worried. Like I just heard some people who said their kids weren't sure what to do about their college selections during this time. And so, you know what? I have a great guy who does college advice. Why don't you just let your kid reach out to my friend and he will talk to them, and he's not charging anything? Be a connector, my friends. Look at your sphere, listen to what's going on. If you see someone online who's melting down themselves, maybe you see a friend who's melting down. Now, you don't have to fix them, but you can call and offer to help them. You can call and say, hey, man, is everything okay? Oh, my gosh. And then they're venting. And then you might say, you know what? I have a friend I think you would love talking to. And it might not even be because you're trying to solve the problem. It's just because you think they need a new friend right now. They just need to be connected. So be a connector as well. So be a positive presence and be a connector. And then, of course, what's the third thing you want to do? Check this out. Teach them the same I'm teaching you. Don't think that your friends and family couldn't use this same model. They're all wondering if their dreams are off the map. They're all wondering if they're stuck in the mud with no energy. They don't know how they're going to reroute their careers, their educations, their home life, their family life, their business opportunities. Teach them this model. Use the triangle with them. Now, you don't have to do a class. You could just be talking one day and you discover that they're feeling the same thing, uncertain, unsure, unclear. And you say, you know what? Grab a piece of paper, my friend. Draw a triangle in it. Let me just show you this real cool thing. Imagine if you listen to good stuff every single morning, and imagine if you took one of the things you love to do and read a new book on it, and imagine if you got connected with a friend of mine. Like, you don't actually have to teach them like a teacher. You could just share the benefits of this. Just share the benefits of this model with them. And so that's an interesting way to be able to help your sphere of influence grow at this time as well. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about being a positive presence in just a second, but let me look, because there were some things in the chat room happening here. Barbie says, hey, we should be careful not to bombard people. That's a great point, Barbie, right? We don't want to just email for the sake of emailing, text for the sake of texting, right? We want to have meaningful conversations. Mix it up. Sometimes it's an email. Sometimes it's a great thing you could think to share on social media. And sometimes it's, it's a telephone call. I mean, one of my clients actually, I keep saying client, he's just a friend. He actually sent me a basket of cheese the other day. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I got this note that said, welcome to spring. We're sorry we weren't able to get together with you this spring because we were going to have an in-person event, but we were all talking about you at the office meeting the other day. And I thought, they didn't even ask me to do the office meeting, and they were talking to me about me. And they said, oh, yeah. And one of them said, oh, let's send Matthew a cheese basket. It's crazy, but maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's a square of cheese that could make someone's day, right? So, try to keep it simple and positive and easy for them. Take something off their plate if you can as well. Now, before we go, I do want to talk about this. I want to talk about being a moment of time well spent with them, a moment where they're thankful to have you in their lives. Now, I'm just going to use social media as an example of this, but you could do this in a phone call, or you could do this in an email or a newsletter. I do it by social media because I'm trying to be a moment of time well spent for as many people as I can be. So this is what I did. I just wrote this little quote. I made up this little quote, and I put it on a picture. And then I just wrote a personal reflection. Like, this is actually written the way that I would write it in my own journal. But I decided that if I shared it with others, maybe they could learn it too. And as you can see, the opening is probably familiar to you because that's how I opened today's message as well. It's the same message, right? It was the best of times, the worst of times. It was any other day. And then I told the story about when I had a really big challenge in my life 20 years ago when I was ill. And this is what happened to me. This is where I felt stuck. And this is how I got through it with the help of my mentor and my peers and my sphere, and how I also became better because of it. And I just told this story online. And why did I tell this story? Because I thought if people knew that we've all had challenges and we've all had a chance to go through them together, they'd feel a little better too. And you know what works so well? There are the comments. These are the kinds of comments that I get all the time. A great message. I needed this today. Thanks for the most positive, uplifting post I've read. These are just different comments that I'm getting. And I'm not getting them because I want the comments, my friends. These indicate to me that I was a moment of time well spent. And what's so funny is that 3 seconds before I just showed you that in the chat room, Heather wrote, "Thank you so much. I needed that today." That's what we need to do, my friends, right now. We need to do the work that we're prepared to do, that we've trained to do, that we're ready for in a way that gets people to say, well, like Heather said, I needed that today. Okay. Imagine if what they needed today came from you. And it wasn't just a market update. It was you sharing you. That's what allows people to hear your story. And if you have an offer, they can connect with you. But it also helps direct them from their sense of panic to their sense of power as well. I assure you that people are making a list of the moments that they feel were time well spent during the crisis. Sounds weird, right? Time well spent during the crisis. Those are the people they'll call first. Those are the people be on the tips of their tongues when they talk to others. Those are the people that will never need to receive an ad from you ever again. They will know your name and they will know you by your works. And what are those works? The works that you do with them today. So we're just about at the end of our time together. So I want to give you this thought, and then I want you to think about your triangle, and I want you to think about mindset, skill set, sphere of influence, just reprogramming a little detour because your dreams still matter and going there. And what I want you to do is, I don't like to call them closing thoughts anymore. That's one thing I learned as a result of this process, is that I don't like closing thoughts. I like new opening thoughts. And then I'll certainly take some questions on Twitter, but new opening from the chat room here. But my new opening thoughts are this: even in the worst of times, we have the ability to start writing a better version of ourselves. I can't change the world for everyone, but I can change me, and that might just help change one other person. Well, and maybe then I will change the world a little bit for everyone. But you remember where I started today? I started with the quote from Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Well, that's a good way to open our thinking, but what's a good way to close our thinking? How about changing up the last line from the same book? Because what's happening to us right now, who you're becoming through your stewardship and your ability to reroute and keep going and help others reroute and keep going at a time like this, is just a little tweak on the last line of that book. You are becoming a far, far better you, and perhaps going to a far, far better place than we've ever been before. I really hope this has been helpful to you. I appreciate a chance to share the message with you. I love all the questions. Thank you so much. Mark, I know you miss hanging out with me on Twitter, but I know you hang out with me on Facebook. I'm a better person on Facebook than I was on Twitter, so it's just the place I want to be for sure. I'm not silent on Facebook, that's for sure. I'm there. Just look for Matthew Ferrara. I don't put so much on my business page because I'm just me. So just find me, Matthew Ferrara, the person, not my business page, and follow me there. I'm more than happy to have as many friends as I can possibly have. Thank you so much for all these really kind comments in the chat room as well. I'm going to turn it back over to your leadership and wish you all the best until next week.
Thank you, Matthew. Always inspiring, as always. Very much appreciated for your time today. And for the folks on today's webinar, we haven't seen the last of Matthew. We've got him for 2 more sessions. So same time next week, Friday at 3 o'clock Eastern. Please join us here. You can register via the email that was sent out earlier this morning from me. Look for Kelly McCain, Maintaining Momentum. We also have 2 webinars next week with Philosopher and the Ontario Real Estate Association, as well as a real estate lawyer. So lots of great stuff to come. Matthew, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you next week at 3 o'clock Eastern on Friday. And next week, your session is all about time well spent, rethinking your communication strategies. So you want to give us any tips about what's to come and what we should get excited for?
Sure. We're going to take what we were just talking about, being time well spent and social, and we're just going to expand on that. I'm going to show you some practical techniques, the way I actually create my messaging as well. And I'm going to teach you something which we call the 4 things all relationships need. And when you fulfill those 4 things, people will listen to your message and they won't even know that you aren't there in person with them. So you're gonna love it. It's a really fun gig.
Great. Thanks so much. We're looking forward. We'll see you next week, and everybody stay safe. Be well. Take care.
Be
Bye-bye.
well. Ciao, everyone.